Western news is different from Dr. Martin Mungwa liberation movement. No, I want to know whether I'm summarizing first.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with undaunted ABC Amber News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amber TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amber TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team. draft award 22 is here. People, it's time to win again.
This is the time for us to draft until we draft. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions.
Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day? While our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers?
Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort? While our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the home front?
Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communication equipment to maximize their efforts?
Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics?
Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices and drafting big while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy?
On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through the fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country?
Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical, intelligence and other special operations across the national territory?
As we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Ambazonia die as a wish, because we failed to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting a great people.
The World Draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depends on that.
It is Award 22. Let us draft until we drop.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. As you know, Tuesday is always a moment Ambazonians looks forward to receiving the SOS for Communications and IT Dr. Martin Mungwa. And as it is not just a time for communicating but also about talking policy, government's position on vital issues, bringing Ambazonians closer to their part of freedom. With his captions tonight, La République du Cameroon's economic chokehold, the victorious seaport, Is there a business case? That in one hand, it will appear the problems of the world continues to escalate as the wars in many countries, economic crises and inflations increase. Africa being the victim of circumstance of this known dispensation, the world other with unending problems, it is anticipated that the major conflicts will be a focus of discussion, but from the Ambazonian perspective, that wouldn't be so, because according to the program for this year, we hear of Yemen, Ukraine, Syria and perhaps Ethiopia, but it is yet a mystery why the former British Southern Cameroons is not a subject. The question would be, after 45,000 lives have been wasted in the senseless genocidal onslaught that has been ongoing for 5 years, how many more lives would need to be lost to prick the consciences of policymakers and stakeholders of global peace and stability? As Ambazonia look forward to the hunger that begins in a couple of days, these are some of the questions they have in their minds. In tonight's Undaunted, we'll bring to you an important resume put together by the patriots titled Ambazonia Briefs. Well, without wasting any further time, we will exceptionally bring to you an important aspect from our correspondent, Asia Storm, 15 Minutes of Beauty and Beast.
Another 15 minutes. Beauty and the Beast. Two powerful foes in humanity, every moment are wreaking havoc on lives that would be lovely without the pull. These two forces, from my vantage point, are love and power. I label the and the beast. Both can murder our hearts and us in an instance, in countless ways. I will examine these two phenomena. So, as we move forward, let's compare these two power forces to war and peace. Love and war. What is love? The greatest definition I have found anywhere is the one in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a woman, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. If we would but apply love to the areas of need, if we would bring it to the tables of negotiation before we declare war, there would be no war. How do I come to this unshakable conclusion? Let's take a moment to blanket cover love over war. Verse 1 says, "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal." If everyone at the table on both sides of war would be grounded in this definition of love, there they would be careful with what and how they say anything, as they make themselves certain that every thought would be captured until it is tested by love. If every man or woman at the table of negotiations who is considering war against another would honor what verse 2 says, every person representing every country at the table would respect the other, knowing that even if they all have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge and have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, they are nothing. Not any of them. Because this definition of love beholds every breathing human being. If those negotiating the terms of war would realize this bold truth, the tone of all negotiations would soften with compassion and empathy, selflessness, decreasing the probability of war. If what love is would be the rule at the peace table, by definition, war simply would not be possible, because listen closely once again to what verses 4 and 5 says. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. And it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. With this quote of what love is, characterizing the intent of all at the table and all whom they represent, love would oversee the negotiations of war and peace. Peace would reign and war would die at the table. Power over war. Seeking power can be the most soul damaging thing a human can do. I am convinced of this. Read James 3:13 through 18. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, and demonic. For where envy and self-seeking, confusion, and every evil thing are there. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in by those who make peace. End of that scripture. Arrogance being sneaky thief. All of humanity can be enticed into thinking they don't mind facing eternity, all forms of malice written in their books of life, until it's time to pay the piper. If a wisdom-informed approach to harming other fellow human beings were taken, even proud human beings would shudder with just the thought of victimizing others, knowing that their deeds will be written in the annals of time, lined with consequences for every action, good, not good. Power is not such a bad word as it is defined in the American dictionary. It is defined as the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Just as money is not a bad word, both of these have heart-hardening attributes and can sucker people into a love affair that makes them the root of all evil. The evil. Power over peace. Let's look a little closer at the root of power through the eyes of Isaiah from the Old Testament in the Bible. Isaiah 14:12 through 15. How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of Eve. How you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend to the heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farther side of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down Sheol, lowest depths of the pit. That's what power is. Power and war. The haughtiness of humans have erupted in wars and famine. The famine I speak of is not about food, water, land, or material resources. It is about love, kindness, compassion, and integrity. We are in a severe drought. Our world is running through a vast worldwide famine that touches or mauls the lives of every person living today. Power can be a blessing to humanity, but when it is misused as it is today, that same power can be a curse to humanity. When power rules at the tables of negotiation between war and peace, chaos is the result, and war is imminent. Beauty and the Beast. I will show these people by name. Some are beasts wearing beauty's clothing. For instance, I will use Oprah as a question. I don't quite have the answer to this question, so I must ask you, dear Oprah, are you a beast, beauty, or a beast? You have done great things and accomplished much, but how could you open a school in Africa in the heart of abuse and violence and not spend your monies, every dime of your monies, and open this school to protect these young innocent girls? Straight out beasts who were turned into monsters by inequality and abuse, victimized people and were victimizing them when you opened the school. Where where was what were you thinking? I will reflect on an international long known killer who was a child and turned sadistic. Scriptures show that righteous people asking not to be hungry so he doesn't rob. I will show how I was a police officer in the 70s who was forced to write bad checks after the chief of police put me in a predicament, excuse me, sexually. That forced me to quit my job. I committed a crime to protect my children and so had uncountable consequences. Politicians, Most are again beasts wearing beauty's clothing. Here I will show what they can be, but what they are instead. I will select the most wow elected official in America to show what he or she could have done, what they do as a reflection. My summation. Summation will give the results of this reflection and what I can do to create change and a call to action to others who believe love is the answer. When we come together as one voice and soften our hearts to others and give love in response to any action. If someone wants our coat, we give them our cloak. If someone slaps one cheek, we turn the other. We give love in response to any action. Peace is the result. I that we all.
African country went back on list of destinations for migration partnership after civil servant had ruled it out. Judges here. The UK plan to deport people seeking asylum to Rwanda has been challenged in the High Court with claims that ministers deliberately ignored evidence that the East African country has violated human rights, including the right to live free from torture. Rwanda was put back onto a list of potential destinations for a migration partnership after previously being ruled out by civil servants, the court was told. An extra payment of 20 million euros was made to the Rwanda government on top of the previously announced 120 million pounds in economic development funding. It was disclosed that the legal challenge came as the number of refugees arriving by small boats across the channel rose to record levels. Liz Truss, who won the Conservatives leadership contest and will become the new Prime Minister on Tuesday, has pledged to stick with the policy. Raza Hussein, QC, appearing on behalf of asylum seekers, along with the Public and Commercial Services Union (PCS) and the groups Care for Calais and Detention Action, on Monday said the policy was unlawful under the Human Rights Act and the common law. Asylum seekers removed to Rwanda face a significant risk of violation of their rights to be free from torture and inhumane treatment. This is what the court told. In written submissions, the claimant said the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, and the government, including the Foreign Office and Number 10, were themselves aware of and appear to have had serious concerns over Rwanda's present and historic human rights record. Hussein told the court that Rwanda is a one-party authoritarian state that does not tolerate political opposition. It is a regime that repeatedly imprisons, tortures, and murders those it thinks are its political opponents. Those who protest or dissent from government directives, including refugees, are faced with police violence. All of those observations are drawn from our own government officials. The Home Office is defending the claims. A spokesperson for the department has argued that Rwanda is a fundamentally safe and secure country with a track record of supporting asylum seekers. In April, Patel signed what she described as a world-first agreement with Rwanda in an attempt to deter people from crossing the channel. Nevertheless, the first deportation flight due to take off on 14th June was grounded after a series of legal challenges. Documents disclosed to the claimants by the government show that in February 2021, Rwanda was not on a list of 7 countries identified as potential partners in a migration deal. However, the country was reassessed as a possible destination after the Foreign Office was told that the Prime Minister was frustrated at the rate of progress the court heard. Now, an upfront £20 million payment was made on April 29, 2022, to allow preparations to be made for the first removal flight, which ultimately did not take off, and the extra payment was made despite the Home Office Permanent Secretary, Matthew Rycroft, having previously warned that there was a high risk of fraud in the Rwanda deal. Lord Justice Lewis, sitting with Mr. Justice Swift, previously said the hearing in London will start on Monday and last for 5 days, with a second hearing in the claim brought by the group Asylum Aid taking place in October. Both decisions are expected to be given in writing at the same time. The court is expected to hear that the Rwanda policy's accelerated screening process does not allow the Home Secretary to identify vulnerabilities and secure sufficient information on the risk faced by asylum seekers threatened with relocation. It will also be claimed that the assessment system for UK arrivals has been set up specifically to ensure that most fail, despite legitimate claims under human rights laws. During a previous hearing, the court was told Rwanda had initially been excluded from the shortlist of potential countries on human rights grounds. Judges heard that in an internal note from March 2021, Foreign Office officials told the then Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab that if Rwanda was selected for the deportation policy, we would need to be prepared to constrain UK positions on Rwanda's human rights record and to absorb resulting criticism from the UK Parliament and NGOs. In another memo, Foreign Office officials said they had advised Downing Street against engagement with several countries, including Rwanda, the court was told in written argument. Now, the court also heard the UK High Commissioner to Rwanda previously indicated that it should not be used for the policy, telling the government has been accused of recruiting refugees to conduct armed operations in neighboring countries. Now, another official memo in April this year said the fraud risk is very high and there was limited evidence about whether these proposals will be a sufficient deterrent for those seeking to enter the UK illegally. The hearing began at 10 a.m. on Monday before Lewis and Swift. There were at least 40 barristers in court. More than 20,000 people have crossed the channel on small boats since Patel announced the agreement with Kigali. The number of arrivals by small boat this year is expected to pass the total for last year at some point this month. In her last appearance in Parliament as Home Secretary, Patel defended the government's plan to send people to Rwanda, telling MPS this partnership is very clear in terms of standards, the treatment of people that are relocated to Rwanda, the resources that are put in, and also the processing of how every applicant is treated. Now, this is where we begin the news briefing of tonight Undaunted. I am Star Smart. We'll move on to the news right after this break.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, tonight with us we have our correspondents in the house, Asia Storm. We'd like to have your report. Good evening, Asia Storm.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am pretty confused, I would say, as to why Rwanda, the transfer of power didn't get to Rwanda when they were freed, when the murders stopped, because people in America are, grateful and thankful that this people was relieved from all of the catastrophes that were going on against them, all the murders, all of the horrific things that we can identify with as we see Ambazonia. What happened at this point? I thought I would be asking the secretary this question, but these are the kinds of questions I have right now, and perhaps to wait until he has spoken to us. But I was surprised, I must say, that the transfer of power didn't go to the people um, when they when they got from under the horrific murders that was going on against them. So I have things to say about the asylum, and I don't know if this is the time for me to say it, because I think the thing is that we, the people all over the land, need to realize that the problem, the sick problem, is at the borders where this is happening. Something the people need to grasp and understand that I think it's not being communicated. What can we do as opposed to just reporting the problem? What can we do to end this, to bring power? If you are saved from all of these atrocities, if you made it through, what happens? What will happen for Ambazonia? That's my biggest question. When her freedom is won, um, what happened in there to stop the power from being transferred? And now they can't even bring in refugees. I think this is one of the most important things to Ambazonia. They can't wait to bring in people who need asylum. And this country, the Rwandans were blocked. They're still waiting for approvals to bring in refugees. So I guess I am, as opposed at this point to analyzing what's been said, I'm filled with questions.
Okay, so we have one more report as regards the United Nations General Assembly. Maybe you just hold on right there, and then after which I'd get back to you in that regard.
Thank you.
All right, this is an important resume put together by the Patriots, and he captions Ambazonia Briefs. The conflict between the two Cameroons is the most neglected conflict that the world has ever known. It is on now for 6 years and counting, but France, the actual sponsor of the genocide, has kept deceiving those organizers, countries, and eminent persons who ought to end it to look away. We write this in the hope that people of goodwill, people with living consciences, Christians, human rights activists, and more will rise now and free suffering people whose right to self-determination has been denied them. Though all of this, it is a big story. The following brief should stir every good mind. 1. In 2016, the people of the former British Southern Cameroons, now Federal Republic of Ambazonia, rose in a determined effort to chase out French Cameroon, La République du Cameroun, an illegal occupier of their own country. 2. In November 2018, Mr. Paul Biya, president of neighboring La République du Cameroun, declared war on the peaceful people of Ambazonia. Since then, an estimated 50,000 Ambazonians, the elderly, babies, toddler, the insane, and all have been murdered on the streets of Ambazonia, in their beds, in the bushes where they hide from the terrorizing forces from La République du Cameroun, across the international border, and more. All readers, please spare some time to visit AmbazoniaGenocideLibrary.com and be moved to tears. 3. Our schools are not safe, so we prefer to keep our kids at home. We have created some community schools to keep the kids occupied and to give them whatever education we can. But soldiers from La République du Cameroun occasionally invade and kill Ambazonian children in some of these schools, and sometimes as the children move home from those schools, they have burned down some of such schools. 4. Besides the regular army of La République du Cameroun that France and La République du Cameroun use for their atrocities in Ambazonia, a militia sponsored from La République du Cameroun is also used. The so-called Ambazonia Defense Force, ADF, has nothing to do with the defense of Ambazonia. It is sponsored by La République du Cameroon through the office of Colonel Emily Bamqui, who is in charge of military research in that country. In fact, some members of ADF are also members of La République du Cameroon's army to ensure that the arms they supply do not get lost. Masquerading as an Ambazonian force, the ADF is made to commit atrocities in the land and blame them on Ambazonian Restoration Force, in the hope that it will make the international community tag Ambazonians as terrorists. This has failed all along, yet they continue with their atrocities. ADF ambushes and kills Ambazonian liberation fighters, decapitates innocent civilians, kidnaps for ransoms, and a whole lot more. Atrocities by ADF, though conceived by France and La République du Cameroon, are implemented through commands from a certain Ayabacho Lucas, who lives in Norway. Capodania, who lives in faraway China, speaks for this terrorist group. Mostly these two individuals and others rain terror on Ambazonians in the interest of France and La République du Cameroon. Of course, they are paid heavily for this. Now 5. France and La République du Cameroon sponsor individuals to create personal groups which they call governments in order to oppose the one and only government of Ambazonia because they find it difficult to corrupt. Ayabacho Lucas has one of such groups, which he calls F.ASCE. Mr. Ayuk Tabe Julius, one-time president of Ambazonia, who is actually imprisoned in La République du Cameroon, has another. Yet another is by the one-time communications secretary of Ambazonia, working with a certain Marianta. But Ambazonians do not recognize any of these groups, so they have no say in the liberation struggle except trying to disrupt it, having been paid by La République du Cameroon and France to do so. Now 6. During the Paris Peace Forum in November 2021, Mr. Paul Biya, president of La République du Cameroon, declared in an interview with Mo Ibrahim that what his country has tried all along, though with failure, has been to annex and integrate Ambazonia into his own country. Now he said this, so everybody is asking if this should be allowed in the 21st century into human civilization. Now 7, he goes on to say La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia, former British Southern Cameroons, were two separate UN Trust territories under two separate administrators, France and United Kingdom respectively. Now had two separate votes and independence dates by the UN General Assembly on two separate occasions. There is an internationally recognized boundary between the two Cameroons established by international treaties. So La République du Cameroon occupies Ambazonia illegally against all provision of the UN and AU charters and resolutions of the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly, and the AU. These truths and many others that cannot be accommodated in a small space like this call for men, organizations, and countries of goodwill to come to the assistance of an occupied and subjugated people. The world is not yet free, with others still in chains. Honest and honorable men and women around the world can indeed bring freedom to others by ensuring justice based on international laws. Now, this is something signed for, this is an Ambazonia briefing. This is a truth listed out. Mime Aisha, I believe you're still here with us. You've heard what I've just read through facts and facts proven that Ambazonia is being annexed by La République du Cameroon. What do you have to say to this truth?
I have to say that no matter what it brings, the most important thing we can do to the forefront of our everything, to get the United States, the United Nations, to bring a fact-finding mission. This is what's critical. We have to come and find the truth. We have to bring the truth out to the people, and we have to spread that truth over to people here. There's too many people who just don't know what's going on. I understand after all that you're sharing in the news. It's understood that the people of Ambazonia are being horrifically victimized. It is time right now that we, the people, we bring this to an end. No more of 5 years, no more a year. We do something now, and there are some things that we can do. This is horrific. That's what I think.
Okay.
Star, Miss Star.
Okay.
So, yes, the last time you talked to us about your petition, yeah, you talked to us about your petition. In your like the whole petition, did any of this truth like come out? In order to encourage and make people see the truth and get to, have a reason to sign up for that petition. Did you get any of this, detailed explanation of the annexation going on? Did you state that like in your petition, and how far has it been coming?
We didn't get very deep into the petition content. We wanted people to know, number one, that people are being slaughtered. That was the most important thing we wanted people to know, because I believe the more people who realize that babies, people are being slaughtered in horrific ways. So the petition is to get people to wake up their compassion for people who are victimized in this horrible way. The how it's happening, the policies behind it. No, we didn't share all of that on the petition, but we are revising the petition, and the petition will be updated constantly as we get this information to impart it to the people. So no, we did not go as deep into that in the petition as we will be going.
The goal of the petition is to get people to rise and see. Even the slaughter you mentioned is already enough to push people to get up and sign up for the petition. Well, speaking of the injustices, here is a scan through Africa ahead of hunger. Well, in Libya, Libyans have lost faith that the political class and its allied militias and mercenaries are willing to end the robbery of the nation's wealth. A senior U.S. diplomat warned after some of the worst violence in Tripoli in years. UN Security Council hears bleak assessment of country's prospect after violence between militia in capital. More than 32 people were killed and 150 wounded in clashes in the capital last week between militia allied to the rival prime ministers Abdul Hamid Dbeibah and Fathi Bashaga. Dbeibah's government of national unity, which he has run since last year and which controls the western part of the country, has been based in Tripoli since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi's regime in 2011. Now, while Bashaga has run the eastern part of the country since March, backed by the military strongman Khalifa Haftar, Bashaga allied militia, including a brigade commanded by a wealthy gangster called Haitham al-Taduri, entered Tripoli to try to topple Dbeibah's government, but were soundly defeated. That's good news right there. In Somalia, at least 19 killed in Somalia in attack by Al-Shabaab insurgents. The killings come 2 weeks after a group besieged a hotel in Mogadishu for 30 hours, leaving 21 people dead. Fighters from the Islamist insurgent group Al-Shabaab have killed at least 19 civilians in a nighttime attack in central Somalia, clan chiefs and local officials said on Saturday. The attack comes 2 weeks after Al-Shabaab, which has waged a long insurgency against the Somali state, besieged a hotel in the capital Mogadishu for 30 hours, leaving 21 people dead and 117 people injured. The sources said the group intercepted at least 8 vehicles traveling between the towns of Beledweyne and Maxa overnight from Friday to Saturday, setting fire to the vehicles and killing the passengers near Afa Erdud village. The terrorists massacred innocent civilians who were traveling last night. We don't have the exact number of victims, but 19 dead bodies have been collected, local clan and elder Abdullahi Harid told AFP. And in Zambia, crisis hit Zambia secures 1.3 billion US dollars IMF loan to rebuild stricken economy. Years of mismanagement have led to soaring debt levels, but critics say that without meaningful relief, austerity will continue. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) has approved a 1.3 billion US dollars, that is 1.1 billion pounds loan to Zambia as the country scrambles to rebuild its crisis-hit economy after defaulting on its foreign debt in 2020. The COVID pandemic compounded Zambia's economic woes, blamed on years of mismanagement and corruption which left the country with unsustainable levels of debt. The bailout announced on Thursday follows months of negotiations between Lusaka and Zambia's main creditors, which include France, the UK and China. Nearly half of the country's debt payment are to Western private lenders. And in Nigeria, jam today, Nigerians turn a profit from the choked traffic of Lagos. The city's 24 million people can sit in gridlocked streets for more than 30 hours a week. For some, that represents a good way to make a living. By Adebayo Abdul Raham in Lagos photographs so too. Just after 6 a.m., Omawumi Adekambi leaves the one-room flat where she lives with her 4 children. An hour later, she is at work in the gridlock morning traffic. Her customers are frustrated car commuters of Lagos. For a ball balanced on her head, Adekambi deftly hands over cans of fizzy drinks with one hand and collects Naira banknotes with the other. When the bowl is empty, she buys more and returns to lines of cars that have barely moved in the meantime. A 2018 report showed that Lagos residents spend on average of 30 hours a week in traffic, one of the highest figures in the world. The city, Africa's 7th largest economic hub, despite being Nigeria's smallest state by area, is home to an estimated 24 million people. Now, this construct between size and population means that the city's 9,100 roads accommodate 5 million vehicles transporting 8 million residents. That's for Nigeria. Now in Malawi, petrol pumps run dry across Malawi as fuel imports problems deepen. Motorists forced to pay premium for smuggled black market fuel or drive to service stations at border with neighboring Mozambique. Motorists in Malawi are having to rely on fuel smuggled in from neighboring Mozambique as pumps across the country run dry, while some drivers told The Guardian they had to cross the border to get petrol as the country grapples with severe shortages. Now, when somebody says we have been depending on smuggled fuel for Mozambique, that is Alec Podani, a motorist from the southern Malawi district of Falombe. Some entrepreneurs have taken advantage of the situation and are smuggling the scarce commodity, which they are selling at 50% over the normal pump price. On Monday, Malawians traveling from the capital Lilongwe to the commercial city Blantyre told of making a 66-mile detour to fill up in Lizulu, a town on the Malawi-Mozambique border. Blessings Masache had traveled to Lizuli to buy fuel for his fleet of taxis, but was disappointed to find pumps already dry due to high demand. Well, let's get into Ambazonia, the crux. The genocidal onslaught is escalating, targeted and random killings are intoxicating. On this morning, according to reports coming in from Kemiashu, an Ekona-based school teacher has been caught in a crossfire between bears and ARFs. Kemiashu, with an angry tone, says further, teachers have been told to stay away from schools until there is a buffer zone and French Cameroon stop killing our people, but they do not listen. Her life hangs in the balance now as she is on a critical condition in hospital. Get well soon. Help the teachers learn and stay away. Now, this brings us to a serious concern. Conflicting reports are coming in from the home front in relation to school resumption and lockdown. That's in spite of the interim government's position that has been pointed out very clearly and time over time. According to reports by Mimi Mefo this morning, day 2 of school resumption in the Cameroons and the ghosts are out some parts of Bamenda. This is what she reported. The streets have been completely blocked today at Below Fonta. Contrary to the prediction of government officials, school resumptions in the northwest region, that is the Midland zone, I guess especially, remains timid. Yesterday, we reported being dumped in a bush in Mbengwi, probably because of poverty amid the war. A baby was dumped in the bush in Mbengwi. Yesterday, that was our report. A man, his entire family were wiped in Kuv at Bowie County last week simply because he is just an Ambazonia. A hustler, a bike rider, was killed in Bafoot local government area because colonial forces suspect he's an ARF due to his hairstyle, dreadlocks. Now we can go on, and the UN is much aware of these carnages. The agencies like the UNHCR in different regions also portray redundancy towards these carnages. Some believe that the UN is a toothless bulldog. In fact, the UN said 50 civilians were killed in last April by Mali's army. Alleged massacre took place on Market Day in Humbori after military convoy hit explosive device. You would want to ask, but have they done after that? What have they done? As per the lockdown, the Secretary of State for Communications and IT has something to say. Let's hear him.
Alert, alert, alert. This is Dr. Martin Mungwa, Secretary of State for Communication and IT for the interim government. Today, the 6th of September 2022, I come to you to reiterate the position of the interim government. There is no lockdown at the home front. Once again, I repeat, there is no lockdown at the home front. So I call on the population, I call on the ARFs to be watchful and to be very careful as far as movement and as far as communication within the cities is concerned. So I'm here once again to make it very clear that any attempt to enforce a lockdown is illegal and is unauthorized and does not get the blessing of the interim government. Thank you and goodbye.
Yes, and you've heard it from the SOS for Communications and IT, Secretary of State for Communications and IT, Dr. Martin Mungwa, F.ASCE. You've heard it for yourself. Well, just after this break, I'll be right back with the editorial. Stay tuned.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
In today's editorial, we revisit the aspect of education with Peace by Fredly Muzangta, the Soul Searcher, and he captions Schooling in Ambazonia During War. The fine rope the interim government walks from PDM for PEM. Men have many reasons for which they spend sleepless nights, some because of empty entrails, while others spend nights calculating how to rob their neighbors or are actively involved in highway businesses. Others, still good men, spend the night watching over the city. Nations have gone to war over women and for flimsier reasons, but real men suffer from insomnia over the future of their children, while well-meaning, purposeful nations go to war to acquire or protect a heritage for generations to come. The future of every community can best be anchored on the education it gives to children, their children. That makes education the best heritage to bequeath to posterity. This accounts for the centrality of education in the Ambazonian crisis. This is also why the position of the interim government on schooling in the home front during this war is of utmost importance, and school be understood by all and sundry and articulated properly by all who communicate for the struggle, irrespective of factions. A misrepresentation of this position can lead to regrettable consequences. Little wonder then that all factions are tactfully aligned with the position of President Sako's government on the matter. The position of the interim government on schooling has not changed since President Sako rose to the helm. The following excerpts from a release by the Department of Education and Strategic Collaboration Desk of August 25, 2022 is an apt synopsis of that position. It is desired of the desk and the interim government in general to see all schools open with teachers and students actively involved in the teaching and learning activities, but that, as has been the case in the past years, we reiterate that we favor schools resumption once parents and school authorities are able to ascertain the security of the children and teachers. In the past, President Samuel Ikome Sako stated that the interim government cannot guarantee the security of our children in schools while our Republic du Cameroon thugs are moving about seeking to kill anything male in Ambazonia. That is why a few children go to school in relatively secured urban areas but not in rural communities, which are hardest hit by the enemy's genocidal army, with hundreds of school infrastructure destroyed and many others including hospitals occupied by La Republique du Cameroon's government soldiers. The Republican thugs from Yaoundé have shot and killed several children on their way to and from school, attacked schools and killed children in classrooms, all in a bid to blackmail the struggle. The cases of F.ASCE, Ekondo Titi, and Saint Teresa in Kumba are still fresh in our memories. Neither have we forgotten Enondiel and Tatao, two gentle sweethearts slaughtered by the genocidal thugs from Yaoundé. Consequently, the interim government has placed the responsibility of taking the decision of whether or not to send kids to school on the parents of the home front who live daily with the carnage and the genocide. The struggle is therefore a permanent partnership with responsibilities and decisions shared by all and at various levels. The interim government's position is the best to assume on the subject for several reasons. Most importantly, education is the anchor of the struggle, being the immediate cause and catalyst of the crisis. Therefore, that which parents stood up for should not be overlooked at any point in the struggle for statehood restoration. The leadership of the struggle therefore seeks to carry along the people on the home front who, while supporting the struggle, in many ways still want their children to continue schooling, to acquire even the half-baked education, while crying, "Keep crawling." No parent I have spoken to on the home front wants to keep their children at home till God knows when, but all are ready to give away an arm to have homeland independence restored. The position of Ambazonians' homefront parents should be understood and well managed. Dealing properly with this position has quashed the enemy's favorite line by which it stated that Ambazonians in the diaspora are wicked and selfish for stopping children on the territory from acquiring education while their own kids attend school in the West. We do in fact know that Yaoundé does not give a damn about Ambazonians' children and their education. Pobias and signs are busy shutting down confessioners and community-run schools in the most affected war zones. The only reason the colonial DOs do this is to deprive our children of even the half-baked education they offer. We are grateful that our parents and relatives, the very ones the betterment of whom we traveled abroad, have understood this and have shut their minds to Yaoundé's misinformation campaign. By taking the risk to allow children to go to school at all, Ambazonians' parents have demonstrated an acute thirst for knowledge and deserve support from UNICEF and the international community. There is better education ahead for these children though, but that will only be possible after we bring this war to the victorious end God has ordained for us. Many think that Ambazonia cannot win the struggle on the battlefield. This thought undermines God and His plans for us. Will God ordain a thing and not make good what He has ordained? Numbers do not matter in a cause backed by God, but we must meet some minimum requirements. Yes, we can win the struggle militarily and actually flush out the enemy from the territory. But can we do this when the men in the trenches have to fight and go on holidays because of lack of weapons and accessories? There is therefore the urgent need to commit more means to homeland self-defense and to push out the enemy now so that our children and teachers can return to school everywhere in safety. The next justification for the interim government's position on the matter is the international community. Nobody doubts that the international community has a role to play in the restoration of Ambazonians' botched independence. While international treaties and charters may not directly bind us at the moment, it is in the struggle's best interest that we respect some of these instruments where possible. Not to do so might lead to the struggle being tagged with terrorism labels that come with nefarious consequences from those we are courting. More so, we are using the charters, conventions, and treaties of this international community to defend our case. If it is good for the goose, it is good for the gander. Wisdom is profitable to direct. Education is a principle right of the children, and we of the interim government know this more than anyone else because the deprivation of education is the immediate cause of this war. More so, it is more in our interest that our children go to school. This is very important for the sustainability of the self-defense war. Fighters need a minimum schooling to be able to read, manipulate, mount and set up the arms they use, as well as invent their own war gadgets. We should be ready for a long haul even though we want to push La Republic out today. It is a very fine rope the interim government is walking concerning the opening of schools. Every discerning and well-meaning Ambazonia should understand fully the interim government's position and articulate it smoothly. As I write this piece, CNN is reporting that Ukraine's children are returning to school amidst the war this September and that they will need psychological support. While we are fearful of children going to right amidst the war, we trust that the teachers on the territory who have opted to take the risk of teaching our children during war will also go the extra mile of acting as counselors and fitness trainers to provide the much needed psychological and physiological support. Without this, more children might be destroyed in the classroom than La Republic du Cameroon is actually killing with guns. There is no telling what happens to a child who sees his or her mate gunned down or who returns to school the next day and learns that their desk mate was killed by a stray bullet on their way home. The effect of a roundly traumatized generation can be very devastating and insurmountable in the future. These courageous and daring teachers should also be able to act as peer counselors to each other. From permanent drafting mode to permanent eviction mode, at the moment, more than 80% of Ambazonians' children of school-going age are at home, in bushes, or in exile. We of the interim government owe these children the duty to getting them back to school from their homes as soon as possible. The one thing we can do to achieve this is increase our financial commitment to the struggle. There is a persistent appeal for the use of IEDs on the territory, the impact of which has always been devastating on the enemy. That appeal is shared here. But IEDs cost a lot of money. That money is in our hearts and wallets to give. Giving miserly to the struggle will not bring this war to an end soon enough. Can we make more funds available? Once a year drafting is no longer tenable. The struggle should be on permanent drafting mode, PDM drafting at least twice a year, so that the ARFs can be on permanent eviction mode, PED. The army that must win a war does not fight and retreat to wait for more arms. Firepower must be sustained. The shipment of weapons, accessories, food and medications to the war front should be a permanent project with no pauses. So far, I cannot say in our favor that we have been up to this task. This is the hour for battle reawakening. We want Ambazonians' children to return to school in their motherland from their homes in a serene environment and atmosphere, void of trigger-happy genocidal talks from Yaoundé. No parent should have to fix their eyes on the threshold of their homes, their hearts beating from the palms of their hands, not knowing whether Tatao, Brady, or Enondale will return alive or not. I advocate for the permanent drafting mode, drafting after draft, so that our ARFs don't run out of ammunition, so that we can produce enough IEDs and purchase RPGs in trunks, so that our valiant men can be in a permanent eviction mode. This is the price we must pay for our children to return to school in perfect tranquility. This price should be paid now and not later. We've come to the end of this article from the Soul Searcher and also the end of our editorial for tonight. It is quite enlightening. If you want more of such articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. Subscribe, become a club member, and a part of this winning strategy. Find out payment details on your screen. I am Star Smart reporting for Undaunted ABC Amber TV.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Welcome back. And now sports. The UEFA Champions League continues on Wednesday with 8 games scheduled to take place. Dutch giants Ajax of Amsterdam will be playing host to Scottish outfit Rangers. German side Frankfurt will lock horns with Portuguese giants Sporting. Italian side Napoli will play host to English giants Liverpool. Spanish side Atletico Madrid will take on FC Porto at the Wanda Metropolitano. Well, Gabellison has more details on the sport news. Let's have it.
Latest world sports. Football. The UEFA Champions League continues on Wednesday with 8 games scheduled to take place. Dutch giants Ajax of Amsterdam will be playing host to Scottish outfit Rangers, and German side Frankfurt will lock horns with Portuguese giants Sporting. Italian side Napoli will play host to English giants Liverpool. Spanish side Atletico Madrid will take on FC Porto at the Wanda Metropolitano. Belgian outfit club Broha will battle things out with Bayern Leverkusen. FC Barcelona will stay at Nou Camp to exchange lessons with Victoria Pleasanier. Italian side Inter of Milan will lock horns with competition favorites Bayern Munich, while Tottenham Hotspur will play host to French side Olympique Marseille. Official: Juventus confirmed successful surgery for Paul Pogba. Juventus confirmed Paul Pogba's surgery was a complete success, but it's still unclear how long the French international will remain out of action. Pogba decided to undergo surgery today following his second day of training on the pitch at Continassa. The results of conservative therapy were not satisfying, so the France international went under the knife. Last evening, Paul Pogba underwent selective external arthroscopic meniscectomy. The surgery, performed by Professor Roberto Rossi in the presence of the Juventus team doctor Luca Stefanini, was a complete success. It's still unclear how long the ex-Manchester United striker will remain out of action. According to Sky Sport Italia, he could be back in 6 weeks, so, on paper, on time for Qatar 2022. However, Pogba decided against undergoing surgery last month to avoid the risk of missing out on the World Cup. I don't know if he'll play in the World Cup, but it's not my problem. I know he'll be back in January for Juventus, Max Allegri said at the press conference today, on the eve of a Champions League clash with PSG.